Now, back to Hodge Podge with Carol McCarthy on KDLM Detroit Lakes.
We've got Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke on the line with me this morning. Good morning, Superintendent Frokke.
Carol, how are we doing today?
You know, just grand. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing, and the heat is on.
and it feels good.
Yeah, that's for
sure.
Feels
good. Yeah, you can see that, you can watch the lawns grow. Before your eyes. The grass is just taking off.
Right, yes. And I'm sure it is all too sweet for kids now on vacation. Last day of school for them on Friday, kind of during this pandemic time. Distance learning the last couple of months of the school year. So that stress is gone, I guess, and on to summer vacation during the pandemic. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things moving forward now that the school year is over for kids. And I'm sure teachers are still working on kind of end of year things right now, or is that not?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, today is the teacher's last work day for the 2019-2020 school year, and part of that is not only doing the wrap up thing with grades and checkout, but also then the collection of materials from the kids, meaning that textbooks and laptop computers that we provide at the various grade levels are now being turned back in. And so it was really interesting. I was up yesterday morning just at the middle school and watching just the first physical face-to-face interaction between teachers and kids yesterday, and it was really powerful. So that's taking place today, and we want to make sure that folks, when I tell that story about seeing kids and teachers interact, we've had to make sure that in this this material drop-off phase, there's some masking protocols, and we have to take those materials and set them aside for a few days and in secured places to make sure that any potential for virus contamination is taken care of. But it was really unique just to watch. You could see the smiles on faces and the expressions in their eyes, both on the teacher side and on the student side. And it was very neat, very powerful, and you can tell they really missed each other.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's a big part of everybody's day, and some of those milestones too that kids cross this time of year. Getting the awards and just doing that. Physical recognition for them, of course, was eliminated due to the distance learning. And of course, one of the big rites of passage, of course, is graduation. And that has been scheduled now and set in stone, so to speak, for June 28th.
That's correct. And the idea that we had was just to potentially give us some time so that potentially, if restrictions would be eased, that we could build a ceremony that was a little bit more closer to what the actual ceremony is. I know that, and there nobody's wrong in what they're doing. It doesn't matter what you do. We just opted to go that way in later June to see what type of a ceremony we're going to be able to provide. And with the idea that I think we've kind of set a deadline of June 15th where we have to start making some program decisions around the commencement ceremony. So we'll see what the June 12th order brings, because that's again another 30 days, the governor's peacetime emergency order. So we'll see what that does. Like I said, nobody's wrong. I know that our neighbors this weekend there'll be graduations in the area. I watched a few in South Dakota over the weekend just to get a feel for what they were doing, and of course South Dakota's taking a little bit different posture and position on the COVID approach, largely due to the fact that the preponderance of the virus is located mostly in Sioux Falls. And so needless to say, then, they've taken a little bit different approach. Still have some protocols in place, but it was interesting to watch what they were able to do on a football field.
All right, I'm on the line today with Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke following the regular meeting of the Detroit Lakes School Board on Tuesday night, moving through the school year. Now students have ended and are on summer break. Some of the other things that were brought up last night on, of course, the school board is meeting virtually on Facebook Live, and we had a report from I believe an enrollment report. And I know that does this happen every year where you have a consultant that goes through, kind of looks at a 10-year segment of time and how the enrollment, kind of averages out and kind of forecasting enrollment. Does that happen every year, or does that happen every 10 years?
Actually, no, Carol. We had enlisted the consulting services of Hazel Reinhardt, and Hazel's a special individual because she was the state's first demographer. In other words, the person who studied population and enrollment trends across the state of Minnesota. So she was the state's first. And so we had done our first work with Hazel was done back in 2016, and we had done it just as kind of a supportive piece of information for our public as we were making decisions on the construction project and the referendum. So what we brought her in at that time to kind of do a study on what she saw in terms of trying to forecast out for 10 years the school enrollment would be here in Detroit Lakes. At that time, she told us back to 2016 that we would see slow, moderate growth for the first 5 years of that 10-year period. And then after that point in time, it would level off and become almost flat. So as it goes then, we started to see that leveling off here in the last year, a little bit before that 5-year period where in other words, we weren't seeing the moderate growth. We were starting to see the level off that she forecasted for the second half of that first study. We were seeing that leveling off earlier. So what we wanted to do was, okay, are we missing something here? And what is she seeing that if we should be concerned? So we brought Hazel back in, and she did in February, she did an analysis. And what that analysis told us, again, 10 years out, information that we somewhat knew, in that we have actually 4 classes that are unusually large within our system right now, and we knew that they've been coming through the system, and so those grades are 7, 8, 9, 10. Grades 7, 8, 9, and 10 are larger than the ones that surround them, so to speak. So she told us that those numbers of those 4 classes wouldn't be replaced, meaning when they graduate as seniors, that's how we gauge enrollment, is a graduating senior class up against the incoming kindergarten class. And so those classes, we would not be able to replicate the numbers they have. Well, we kind of knew that, and certainly the district is going to have to make some preparations programmatically and fiscally when those classes start graduating, because what'll happen is that those classes at in some cases 240, 230 are going to be replaced by 210. And that's a classroom. And so that's, 210, that's not a bad number. It just doesn't replicate those 4 classes. So we have to start making some plans for their departure And then the other part of this is that as she looked at the forecast, she could tell us that the kindergarten numbers in the second, particularly in the second 5 years of this new study, will start to trend upward, albeit on a slow, gradual process. We'll start seeing, in her estimation, instead of a 205 or 210 class kindergarten that we're seeing now, that could move to 220. So that was good news. Some work has to be done to get the bubble through the system, the bubble of those 4 classes through the system. And then once that happens, enrollments will stabilize.
All right. Yeah. So she threw out some interesting figures about, you know, why this birth rate is going down, and the mobility, their mobility issues. I mean, she kind of does the whole study of, you know, who's having babies and why they're not having babies. She kind of started out that way. So is that report available anywhere that people could see?
You bet, absolutely. Certainly they can call us at the office, and then it is, I'm guessing that it's a part of the report is a part of the, or her PowerPoint is part of the board packet agenda, which is on our website at dlschools.net. And then if you go off to the left-hand side on our website, it says district, and then go into school board, and then it'll talk about board agendas. So just keep clicking, and you should be able to find it for the, what was that, the May
18th.
May 18th meeting. So
right.
look for that PDF, and you should be able to click right to their PowerPoint.
Okay.
Very interesting data, and you're exactly right. She analyzes, and that isn't just for schools, but it's our population statewide. Mm-hmm. and I think that she talked about the number of births in the state of Minnesota. I think the state of Minnesota looks to decrease in the number of births going forward into the next 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
And of course, enrollment figures drive the budget and drive future planning and such. So that's why it's important to have that. And like you said, it deals with, gives you kind of a heads up for what you need to plan for in the future.
Exactly, and that's the driver, and we have to look at programmatically what we're doing as well, and so absolutely. So it was just a checkpoint for us at this point, where it wasn't something that we were going to do every year. We saw some things, and in terms of, we were starting to level off a little sooner than what was forecasted from her earlier report. So we wanted her to come in and do a little bit of a check. And to make sure things were okay, that maybe we weren't seeing something that maybe she does. And I think you find it you bring it up, Carol, about what we're learning about the millennials and those kinds of things, and what their thoughts around having children, and how she brought that out in her report. So as it goes, then the number of births are on the decline in the state of Minnesota, and it kind of goes in cycle. We talk around here, it's about once every 12 years you see a change and shift in school enrollment, and we've gone through that uptick over the past 12 years, and now it's kind of leveling off.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke after a quick break. We'll get an update on the construction projects and more coming up next on Hodge Podge.
Now, back to Hodge Podge with Carol McCarthy on KDLM Detroit Lakes.
Welcome back to Hodge Podge. Back in the studio with the Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke via Zoom this morning. And Superintendent Frokke, let's talk a little bit about construction underway for this round of projects in the school district, namely lots of work at the high school this summer, kind of wrapping things up at the other schools. What can you update us on that?
Sure. We spent a lot of time on that last night with the board, about kind of giving them an update as to where we are, both from a physical construction standpoint. We had it the Monday before last night. We had Brian Berg from Zerberg Architects come in and give the board an update on the actual construction where that's at. But last night we spent a little time talking about the whole financial package that's around the project and where that's at right now, so that the board has an understanding of where we're at. You know, it's a whole nother business, so to speak, when you're dealing with you know, obviously the $49 million support of the community by way of that was the lion's share of the project. But and people will be interested to know that by us doing some things with existing revenue streams in the district and some reserve dollars that we've been able to secure over the years, the end game will be right around $60 million in projects. So that'll, for this, as it relates to what's happening in the Detroit Lakes School. So that's pretty neat. That's going to be a great thing for the Detroit Lakes community going forward as we move closer to completion.
Well, one project in particular is the district is looking at adding a greenhouse, and that's something new that was talked about during the work session last week, and now was approved last night. It was kind of the sound I couldn't hear, but I'm assuming it was approved last night to add that. Yeah,
it appears that this time the district has committed $50,000 toward the construction of a greenhouse that we think will go right on the high school grounds, as it supports the some of the programming taking place in our vocational agricultural program. So yeah, that's exactly right. It was an idea in the early stages of planning. We decided not to go forward with it just because the costs were starting to amp up, and that was on the early stages. Well, we believe that we're going to be able to get some grants to support the construction, and the district came with an additional $50,000 last night to support that construction of that project. So there's yet to be some fundraising there in order to make the greenhouse happen. But we think that'll be a nice part to the program, and we'll see where it goes. The main part of the board's action last night was that they felt it was important to come out publicly and by official resolution say that they were behind the construction, so that those people who are evaluating grants and awarding grants will see that the school district is behind it. If the school district wasn't, obviously that your chances of gaining a grant are lower. So we wanted to make sure and take that step.
All right. So some of the things that people are going to notice, or if they haven't noticed so far, is lots of work, like we were talking about at the high school, lots of dirt being dug up. And of course, that greenhouse would be located at the high school, but the building of the ninth grade academy this summer, and also a gym. I know that they're ripping up the commons this summer as well, so that's where kind of the gym will be, and a new entrance, correct, by the start of the fall classes.
Exactly, Carol, and you know, that ninth grade academy, the footings are poured. We had to obviously de-water a little bit more than we thought we were going to have to. We thought that the water table on the ground was a little bit lower than what it was, and so we had to de-water for a while, as people could obviously tell driving by on Roosevelt Avenue. But yeah, we're going to start with that. You saw the demolition of the career and tech wing. All that's wide open now. You can see that as you drive by, and the security lighting on, and those kinds of things. And then I'm thinking about breaking ground on the gymnasium shortly. So, but really, you know, those are as we take a look, it's really quite interesting, Carol, to look I said the obvious, you know, to the eye, is the work at the high school, but it is amazing to see the work that's being done at the Roosevelt building and the middle school. We start on we're switching the kitchen and cafeteria and the administrative offices at the middle school. So all of that has been demolished. And then also there's demolition at Roosevelt. Those buildings are going to look significantly different when kids return in the fall, and we hope that they return in the fall. But it's amazing how fast these contractors went to work in demolishing so that we can get to work and putting the buildings back together. The Rossman is about 80% done. The stage at Rossman has been removed, and that remains the big part of the construction project this summer. We're doing some work in some classrooms off to the side, but the gymnasium is we're about 2 weeks out from being able to use the new gymnasium at Rossman, which is very nice, very aesthetically pleasing. So all in all, everywhere, as we reported to the board, we're at about a third done. In other words, we're 33% done with the project. So that number is going to move significantly this summer, and it'll be a great thing for the community of Detroit Lakes, no doubt.
Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke on the line with me this morning. We got about a minute left here, Doug, and I wanted you to touch on, is the food service program going to continue through the summer, or has that now ended? I know kids were being provided 2 meals a day, of course, because school isn't in session. Is that going to continue, or how does that, I know that was an item on the agenda last night, the food service
It
program.
is, Carol, yeah. The only difference is that we now everything in terms of meals now are going to be from 2 locations. One would be the Richwood store, and the second one would be at the M-State cafeteria. So folks can go around to the back side of the M-State campus on the north side to access, and then go in there. And again, the meals are prepared and bagged like they were during the course of the school year following the issuance of the pandemic. So yes, at M-State and the Richwood store, and I believe those hours at the Richwood store were same for like 11 to 12:30, and then I think it continues all day at the M-State campus.
Okay, and just one more quick question. Is there
Sure.
going to be some kind of summer school going on this year due to the situation we're in, of course, distance learning, but is there anything planned as far as summer school goes?
Well, we're working on that right now. There will be, and folks will have that information a little bit later. The state came out with guidance last week on how summer school should take place, and we can actually do some face-to-face instruction. Obviously, the social distancing parameters are involved. That being that there can be 9 kids with 1 teacher, which obviously there's the number 10, right? 9 kids with 1 teacher, insofar as they can be socially distanced in that 6-foot spacing requirement. So, and then again, if you can't meet the 6 feet, then the 9-to-1 ratio drops, where if you can't meet 6 feet, you might have to go to 5-to-1. Meaning 5 students to a teacher. So now that we have that guidance, we can go to work and start developing programming.
All right. Detroit Lakes School Superintendent Doug Frokke. Doug, thank you so much. As always, pleasure to speak with you, and you take